Just because of things get worse when you pray, it does not mean that God has not heard your prayer. In the Bible, there was a leader who came to Jesus and said, "My daughter is sick. Come lay hands on her so that she can get better." While they were on their way, news came to say that your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore, suggesting that God is limited by the difficulty of the situation. Remember, God is not limited by how difficult the situation gets. He's limited by lack of faith. When Jesus heard this news, he said, "Only believe." In other words, continue to believe. Jesus had already answered this man's prayer because of they were going to attend to the situation. Hallelujah. In the end, the girl was resurrected and Jesus turned the situation around, even though it was worse. The similar thing happened to Lazarus. While he was sick, Jesus did not come. They came to Jesus and said, "The one that you love is laying sick." Now listen to what the Bible says happened in John chapter 11 verse 6 says, "So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days." Meaning, when the situation gets difficult, or rather, when the situation is still less, God can stay because it says, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed. Meaning, when the situation was less, he stayed. But when Lazarus was dead, he showed up. When the situation was less, he stayed. When it was worse, he showed up. So your situation might God might hear your prayer because he heard their prayer, but he stayed. So just because of something does not happen before it becomes worse, it does not mean that God has not heard your prayer. God can still hear your prayer and only show up when the situation is worse. Jesus arrived. The situation was so worse that Lazarus was now decomposed. They said that the body was now smelling, but still God turned things around. He raised him from the dead. Hallelujah. Now, Abraham was expecting a son from God. His wife was barren, but the situation became worse because of both of them became old. Listen to what the Bible says. It says, even when there was no reason for hope, meaning the situation was worse, there was no hope. Abraham kept hoping. In other words, he kept on expecting. The key is to stay in faith. To have hope, it is to expect. To keep on hoping, it is faith. When Jesus was fasting and praying, the first person he met was Satan, was the devil, to tempt him. After the devil tempted him, the angels came after to attend him. So the first person when he was praying that came and showed up was Satan. But that it did not mean that God was not with him. It did not mean that God was not seeing what was happening. In the end, the angels came and attended him. Hallelujah. So remember, when things get worse, when you pray, it's not the ability of God to save that's the problem. It's the enemy trying to discourage you.